I've faced ambushes, firefights, and nights so dark you couldn't see your own hands. But nothing hit me harder than that knock on my barn door. It wasn't the sound, it was the message behind it. 4 men, fake badges, and a promise to confiscate my weapons. I'd spent years building peace on this land, and in one afternoon they tried to take it. They didn't know who I was. They didn't know what I'd buried under this calm. Because when you push a soldier too far, you don't get compliance. You get protocol. Touch that rifle and you'll lose that hand. That's the first thing I said before the dust even settled. The man froze mid-step, his fake badge catching the light. Behind him, 3 others stood in matching black shirts. Bold white letters reading HOA enforcement. Their confidence reeked of something I'd smelled before. Fear hiding behind orders. One of them barked. "By command of the association, we're seizing your firearms." I almost laughed. The only command that mattered here was mine. They stormed in like wolves, kicking over buckets, checking shelves, pretending to know what they were doing. My barn smelled of hay and gun oil, and danger. I watched them silently, memorizing every twitch, every nervous glance. Their uniforms didn't match. Their posture was wrong, and not one of them noticed my thumb tapping the hidden switch under the workbench. They thought they'd cornered a farmer. But they'd just walked into a soldier's test. The leader smirked like he'd already won. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be, old man." I let the silence stretch long enough for his arrogance to echo. My pulse slowed, steady as my breath. Fear? No, just a calculation. I raised my hands, keeping my tone low, almost defeated. "Easy there. No need for trouble. That single line bought me seconds my men outside would need." He turned his back to me, a rookie mistake. His crew began searching the barn, eyes darting over shelves they didn't understand. One picked up a hammer and dropped it with a nervous clang. I stayed perfectly still, the picture of compliance. But behind the calm, a storm brewed. Every movement, every breath was part of a plan I'd built years ago for moments exactly like this. They thought I'd surrendered, but in truth, I'd just set the trap. A faint vibration buzzed through the workbench, one I knew by feel, not sound. The silent alarm had reached the others. Outside, the wind carried the low rumble of engines idling, waiting. Inside the barn, the fake officers strutted like peacocks. One yanked open a storage crate, another tapped my rifle with the barrel of his toy gun. "You're not allowed to keep these anymore," he said, voice cracking just a little. I tilted my head, forcing a calm smile. "Then maybe you should read the Constitution sometime." He didn't catch the sarcasm. Arrogance makes people deaf. My thumb brushed the side of the workbench again, activating phase 2 of the signal. To anyone else, it looked like a nervous tick. But to the men outside, it meant move. They thought they were tightening the noose, but I was the one pulling it. When you've spent 20 years in uniform, you learn one truth. Battles aren't always fought overseas. Sometimes they find you right in your own barn. As the fake officers rummaged through my tools, my mind drifted. Not far, just enough to remember. Sand, smoke, and the sound of my unit breathing in sync. Discipline, brotherhood, honor. Those weren't words we said out loud. They were rules we lived by. I came home to build something quiet. A patch of earth where the noise stopped. Where the rules were mine. But peace is fragile. It only takes one corrupt command to shatter it. I clenched my jaw, grounding myself in the present. These men thought they could strip away my rights like they were paperwork. They had no idea the man they were pushing was trained never to retreat. Because when you corner a soldier, you awaken his protocol. The air in the barn changed heavy, electric. One of the fakes grabbed my hunting rifle off the wall. That was his mistake. I stepped between him and the weapon, close enough to smell the cheap cologne under his fear. "Back away," I said quietly. No shouting. "Just command," he grinned, tried to puff up. "Or what, you'll call the cops?" I let a slow smile form. "You're looking at them." A sharp whistle cut through the air, one note, short, deliberate. My men heard it. A second later, movement flickered in the corner of my eye shadows, slipping through side doors, silent and certain. The leader spun, startled. Who the hell he didn't let him finish? My hand rested on the revolver at my hip. Calm. ready. They thought they'd cornered a farmer, but the battlefield had just come alive. The leader's voice cracked as he tried to recover. "You're making a huge mistake, sir. We're just following HOA protocol." That word protocol hit my ear like an insult. He had no idea what that word really meant. One of his men shuffled nervously. "Maybe we should call Karen?" He froze. The name slipped out like a secret he wasn't supposed to say. My eyes narrowed. "Karen?" I repeated, slow and sharp. The leader shot him a glare. "Shut up. Too late." The damage was done. I took one step closer. "Who sent you?" He looked down, suddenly unsure of himself. His bravado cracked, voice trembling. "The HOA president? She said you were dangerous." I nodded once, calm on the outside, fury beneath. Karen, of course. The Queen of Control had just declared war, and I was ready to answer. The rumble of tires rolled up the dirt road, slow and smug. A white SUV stopped just outside the barn. The door slammed, and there she was. Perfectly pressed blouse, designer sunglasses, the look of someone who believed the world owed her obedience. "Gentlemen," she called out, strutting closer. "I see you've met our problem child." I didn't move. Just watched her smile widen as she waved her phone. "Everything's recorded," she bragged. "Harassing HOA officials carries serious consequences." I almost pitied her. Almost. "These aren't officials, Karen," I said. "They're criminals," she laughed, sharp and shrill. "Please, you think anyone's going to believe a farmer over me?" Her arrogance was louder than the engine still ticking behind her. I met her gaze, steady and cold. "You just made your biggest mistake, because out on that dirt road, my reinforcements were already on their way." The wind outside shifted, heavy, rolling like thunder on the horizon. Then came the engines. Not tractors, not neighbors. Black SUVs moving in formation, dust kicking up behind them. Karen's smirk faded as they screeched to a stop. Doors opened in perfect sync, boots hitting gravel, steady, trained. "What the hell is this?" One of her fake officers stammered. I didn't answer. I stepped forward, eyes on Karen. "You wanted to see protocol? Here it is." My men emerged, armed but composed, faces unreadable, veterans, brothers. They moved like ghosts, taking position, surrounding the barn in silence. Karen's voice broke. This isn't legal." I holstered my revolver slowly. "Neither is impersonating federal officers." The leader of the fakes backed up, eyes wide now. The game was over, and he knew it. But I wasn't done yet. The truth still had to bleed out. Karen tried to stand tall, but her voice shook. "You're bluffing?" I reached into my vest, flipped open the leather wallet, and let the badge catch the light. Federal. Real. The kind you don't buy online. "Bluffing?" I said softly. "No, ma'am. I'm just getting started." The color drained from her face. My men tightened the perimeter. The fake officer started backing away, hands trembling. "You can't do this!" she screamed. "Actually," I said, stepping closer, "I was doing this before you were running bake sales." For the first time, silence ruled the barn. You could hear the flies buzzing against the windows. Every mask had fallen. "Karen," I said, "you just triggered military protocol." Her lips parted. No words came out, and once that protocol starts, nothing can stop it. The roar of another engine broke the silence, this one deeper, familiar. A sheriff's cruiser rolled up the dirt path, lights off, but authority radiating from every turn of its wheels. Karen's face lit up with that smug, desperate hope. "Finally," she hissed. "Now you're finished." The sheriff stepped out, adjusted his hat, and nodded at me. "Colonel," he said calmly, "we came as fast as we could." Karen froze. "Colonel?" she repeated, her voice cracking. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The sheriff turned toward my men. "Round up those imposters? Federal impersonation charges are already waiting." Karen's phone slipped from her hand, landing in the dirt. "No, wait, this isn't how it's supposed to go." I stepped closer, voice low but cutting through her panic. "No, Karen, it's exactly how it's supposed to go. But justice without proof is just talk, and I had all the proof I needed." One of my men handed the sheriff a tablet. Live feed from the hidden cameras mounted around the barn. The footage played out clear as daylight, Karen handing cash to the fake officers, plotting the raid, laughing like it was a game. The sheriff's jaw tightened. "That's more than enough." He turned to her. "Karen Matthews? You're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and impersonation of law enforcement." The click of the handcuffs echoed through the barn like punctuation to a long sentence. She tried to pull free. "You can't do this!" "I run this community." I looked her dead in the eye. "Not anymore," the sheriff nodded toward me. "We'll handle it from here, Colonel." As they led her away, the air finally felt lighter. Dust hung golden in the sunlight pouring through the open doors. But as peace returned, one last truth settled heavy on my chest. After the cruisers rolled out and the dust settled, I sat on the porch steps, boots still caked in dirt, watching the sun bleed into the horizon. The farm was quiet again. Too quiet. You'd think victory feels loud. It doesn't. It's silent, heavy, earned. I thought about the men who stood by me that day. Soldiers turned farmers, still guarding something worth protecting. And I thought about Karen, how power, when twisted by pride, turns neighbors into enemies. Freedom isn't about guns or fences. It's about peace, the kind you fight to protect, but never to abuse. I took off my hat, stared out at the land I nearly lost, and whispered to no one. Some battles don't end with gunfire. They end with restraint. But I still had one last message for anyone who ever faces their own battle. I stood, brushing the dust from my hands, the last rays of sunlight glinting off the old brass plate on my barn. Freedom isn't free. My father hung it there decades ago. I finally understood what it meant. If someone tries to take what's yours, your voice, your peace, your freedom, you don't fight with rage. You fight with resolve, with truth, with courage that doesn't need to shout. Karen thought power came from control, but real power. It comes from standing firm when the world tries to push you down. I looked straight into the camera, calm and steady. If you've ever been bullied, silenced, or cornered, remember this. You don't need permission to stand for what's right. You just need heart. I smiled slightly, a soldier's goodbye. Because sometimes the quietest man in town is the most dangerous one to cross. Subscribe for more stories of courage and justice.